Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing good today. Thank you very much for your support so far, and also I want to thank you for taking part in the poll that I put up on my channel last week. Today we are going to start with drafting the basic bodice pattern, and subsequently I will also be demonstrating how to draft directly on your fabric. Okay, you know, if you're drafting directly on your fabric, you have to include all seam allowances, all joining allowances, so that you can cut everything at once, unlike when you're drafting the pattern on the pattern paper. So these are the measurements that we are going to need: shoulder measurement, arm side measurement, shoulder to bust point, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to your front waist and shoulder to back waist, bust span, bust circumference, under bust circumference, and then your waist circumference. So if you're still having difficulties on how to get this measurement, please check my tutorial on how to take a comprehensive body measurement. It is very detailed, and I recommend it for every beginner. I'm going to leave the link in the description box. So this is my pattern paper, and the amount of paper that I am going to need is the widest measurement of my upper body, which is the bust circumference plus 5 inches divided by 2. So my bust circumference is 35 plus 5, that is 40 divided by 2, that gives me 20. Okay, so from the edge of my paper up to here I have 20 inches. All right, so I'm going to divide this 20 inches into 2. So one part will be for the front pattern and the other side will be for the back pattern. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to measure my front half length, which is shoulder to waist, right, and then the back half length. So this is my baseline, which also represents my shoulder line. Okay, so I'm going to measure the front waist, which is 16, and then for the back waist, that is 15 inches. Looking at this, shoulder to my front waist is 16, shoulder to my back waist is 15. That is why this is higher than this. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to input my measurements. The first one I'm going to input is my shoulder measurement divided by 2. That is 15 divided by 2, 7.5. So from the center front, this is the center front, guys, I'm going to mark 7.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the back as well, 7.5 inches. Okay, so after doing that, the next measurement will be arm side measurement, okay, which is going to be divided by 2. Mine is 17 divided by 2, that is 8.5. So I'm going to mark 8.5. I'm going to do the same thing on the back. If you like, you can do it simultaneously, that is the front and the back at the same time. And if you like, you can draft the front pattern first and then you draft the back later. All right, so this line is going to be the chest line. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark the shoulder to bust point, but that is only going to be for the front because we do not have a bust at the back. My shoulder to bust point is 9 inches, so I'll mark 9 inches and draw a straight line. So this is my bust point line. For a basic bodice pattern, these are the horizontal lines that we need. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get my bust span measurement. So that's going to be bust span divided by 2. My bust span is 7 divided by 2, that's 3.5. So I'm going to mark 3.5 from the center front, and then on the bust line as well, I'm going to mark 3.5. I'm going to do the same thing for the back, 3.5, okay, and then I'm going to connect these 2 points. Before we go ahead, from the bust point line, come down by 1 inch and then just make a mark. The next thing we are going to do now is to input our horizontal measurements. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is to get the armhole. So I'm going to mark what I have on the shoulder line, which is my shoulder divided by 2. I'm going to mark the same thing on the chest line, that's 7.5, and then I'll draw it into a straight line. For the back, I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, 7.5, I'm going to mark the same thing here, and then I'll draw it into a straight line. The next thing we're going to do is to input our bust measurement. So my bust measurement is 35 divided by 4, that is 8.75. So on the chest line, I'm going to mark 8.75. For the back as well, 8.75. Remember that we are drafting a basic bodice. We are not doing any style or design yet. It is just a basic bodice pattern, which is the foundation, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is to take in my dart. For the back, I would advise that if you're on the slim side, you can take 0.5 inch on both sides, all right? But if you're on the big side, you can do 0.75 inches on both sides, okay? So for me, I'm going to do 0.5 inch on both sides, okay? And then I'm going to connect it to the chest line. And then for the front, because we have the bust at the front and we want to do a little bit of contouring, I can do 0.75 inch on both sides for the dart, okay? If you're on the big side, you can do 1 inch on both sides. So for the front, I did 0.75, and then I'm going to connect it to this line. This is 0.75, 0.75, and this is 0.5, 0.5. So the next thing I'm going to do is to input my waist measurement. So my waist measurement is 31 divided by 4, that is 7.75. But remember that I have 1.5 inches here, okay? 0.75 plus 0.75, that is 1.5. So I'm going to add 1.5 inches to 7.75, okay? This is 7.75 plus 1.5, okay? And then I'm going to connect these two lines. So guys, one thing I want you to know about the dart is that the more dart you take in, the more cup you are forming for the bust. So looking at this, you see that there is something we have not done. The length for the back is still shorter than the length for the front. So in order to reconcile both, what you're going to do is to introduce the bust dart. So the bust dart is going to be the difference between your front half length and your back half length. So my front half length is 16 and my back half length is 15. So the difference is 1, right? So I'm going to come to this bust line and then I'll mark 1 inch downward, which is the difference, right? I'll mark 1 inch downward and then I'm going to connect it here. But remember that this is a basic bodice. We are not transferring the dart. So on this bodice, you're going to have both the bust dart and the waist dart, okay? So if you're not going to transfer anything yet, what you're going to do is to mark 1 inch away from this bust point, okay? And then you connect this bust dart to here, okay? So this is going to be our bust dart and this is going to be our waist dart. I hope you understand. You know those clothes where you have both the waist dart and the bust dart, that is what you're trying to achieve here. Okay, in subsequent tutorials, we'll be talking about how to transfer your bust dart to wherever, maybe the armhole, the shoulder, or back to the waist dart, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is to construct my armhole, okay? So, the neck width and the neck depth that I'm going to use is 3 by 3 for the front. And then for the back, I'm going to be using 3 by 1. So 3 inches for the width and 1 inch for the depth, right? So I'm going to connect these two as well. So this is for the neckline. Regarding the shoulder slant, you know that our shoulder is slanted, right? It is not straight. If you watched my tutorial on how to take body measurement, I demonstrated how to determine the slant, okay? So come down by 1 inch, that is for the slant. and then I'm going to connect this. After doing that, in order to construct the armhole, what I'm going to do is to measure what I have left here. From this slant to the chest line, what I have is 7.5. I'll find the midpoint, that is 3.75, and then I'm going to mark it. All right, I'm going to do the same thing for the back, 3.75, and then I'll mark it. We already have our bust measurement on the chest line, right? What I'm going to do now for the front, if you have noticed, the armhole for the front is usually a little bit deeper than that of the back. So if you're on the big side, you can use 0.75 here, and if you're on the small side, you can use 0.5. For me, I'm going to use 0.5. I'm going to come inward by 0.5. All right, and then I'll connect 1, 2, 3. Okay, the shoulder slant, this point, and then the chest line. So this is going to be my armhole for the front. And then for the back, if you're on the slim side, you can come in by 0.25. If you're on the big side, you can come in by 0.5. Okay, so I'm going to come in by 0.25, and then I'll connect 1, 2, 3. So it remains one thing for the back pattern. Usually, in order to eliminate zipper bulge, what I do is that I go in from the center back. I go in by 0.5 inch, and that is the same thing that I do on my skirts. Okay, and then I do not add it back because I've noticed that it makes the clothes, the bodies, and the skirts lay flat on the back. Okay, so I'm going to connect it to about 2 inches from the chest line. It's going to help me to eliminate the zipper bulge at the back. All right, so guys, this is the basic bodice pattern. So I am going to draw the zipper allowance for the back. Usually I use 1 inch. You can use 1.5. While drawing it, I'm going to start from this slant. Okay, I'm going to start from the slant. So I'm going to mark 1 inch starting from the slant, and that is going to be my new zipper allowance. So our zipper allowance is not going to be straight. It is going to be slanted like this. So you notice that when you sew your zip, it is going to lay flat on your body. All right, so this is the zipper allowance. This is the back pattern. This is the front pattern. This is the bust dart. This is the waist dart. So I'm going to use this pattern as the base for another pattern, and that is going to be for our office wears. The one I said is not really as fitted, not really as hugging, especially at the under bust area, as those we wear to parties or events. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the next tutorial how you can turn this pattern into a princess dart, armhole princess dart, shoulder princess dart. So for the bust dart area, what you're going to do is that you're going to curve it this way before you cut it out. All right, so that by the time you're adding your seam allowances, you're also going to follow this line. All right, because at the end of the day, we're going to sew it. So by the time you sew here, it is going to match up with what we have here, because this difference of 1 inch, this line of 1 inch is what we have inputted here. So that is what, when we take this in, when we sew it in, it is going to match up. So to cut it out, let's start with the front. Don't bother about how slanted this line is. Okay, by the time I take in the dart, it is going to adjust itself. All right. So for the bust dart, like I said, I'm going to cut it like this. And then I'll cut it this way. So this is the front pattern. So this is the back pattern. Looking at this bust dart, the two dart legs, by the time I bring them together, like this, okay, you see what I have? When I'm joining it to the back, I'm not going to have any issue because both the front and the back pattern are going to match up. And like I said, that any dart, whatever dart it is, apart from it being a design or it helping us to draft whatever pattern, okay, to manipulate and all, what it does is that wherever the dart stops, it gives more room, it creates a form of cup. And that is the same thing that happens to our skirt too. That is why your dart for the skirt should end some inches above your hips, so that it can create some room for the bum. So look at this now. Look at the way I've taken in the bust dart. Can you see what it has done here? Okay, just the bust dart. Can you see what it has done? Do you see that it has created, let me turn it. Do you see what it has done here? That it has created some room for my bust. I'm not sure you can see it well. This is the cup I was talking about, that for office wears, we do not really need the under bust measurement because we don't want to wear something really tight for work clothes. If I should take in this dart as well, the waist dart, can you see what the effect it is giving me? Can you see it has given me more cup, more room for the bust, and that is the essence of our dart. All right, but don't worry, in subsequent videos I'm going to explain more to you.